Good morning, guys. Today is day 15 of my Survival Girl on Schindler's List. Today is the last day we're going to read the book. Tomorrow we're going to go through a little, it's really a fun writing assignment that I think a lot of you guys will enjoy, and then we're going to move on from there. All right, so today is Tuesday, May 5th, if you're with us on our timeline. And today we're going to read the last chapter, and then we're going to read kind of like a wrap-up chapter that I think most of you will actually find really interesting because it's all about images of Rena and Mr. Oscar Schindler and people like that. So today, because that chapter, that very special, unique chapter is what we're going to read, we're going to focus on RI 4.7, which we haven't been able to focus on with this book. And you will see why in a minute. So our I can statement is, I can interpret information presented visually and explain how the information contributes to an understanding of the text in which it appears. Okay, so our RI 4.7, we know that means reading informational text in 4th grade, and this is our 7th informational standard. All right, let's go ahead and do our mirrors on, and then we're going to talk about some of the words in this I can statement. In this objective. Okay, ready? Mirrors on. I can interpret information presented visually and explain how the information contributes to an understanding of the text in which it appears. Mirrors off. Okay, so what does it mean to interpret information? We're interpreting information. What does that mean? Really just means that we are reading it or seeing it and determining what it really means. Okay, when we interpret something, oftentimes that word is used when you are going from one language to another language, and that's an interpretation. Like, I'll often interpret things into sign language for our assemblies. I'm taking something from English and I'm changing it into American Sign Language, so that's interpreting. And we can do the same thing with books. When we look at something or read something, we interpret, we figure out what it really means. Information presented visually, what does that mean? A visual representation, what does that mean? It's an important word that you guys should know. We're going to look at that on the next page, but I want you to think if you can figure out what that means. Something that's presented visually. What does that mean? All right, and then the rest, we know what we're talking about there, right? Explain how the information contributes to an understanding of the text in which it appears. We're connecting that text or that information that's presented visually, whatever that means, to the text that we're going to look at. All right, visual representations. When we talk about a visual representation of a text, we're often talking about a picture. We're often talking about a movie. Or we're talking about a text feature, right? In 3rd grade, we talk so much about text features, and I think it's a little strange how that standard kind of disappears in 4th grade. We really don't talk about text features as a whole. We really only talk about a visual representation, and the reasoning for that is in 4th grade, we don't usually have a ton of text features. We usually don't even have a ton of pictures, but what we will see a lot is a visual representation such as a movie, right? So that word visual, that's something that you use your eyes to see, right? And a representation is just another way of saying something, right? Oh, well, this is a representation of Hazel Park. Okay, well, it means Hazel Park, right? It's something that represents it. It stands for it. So images, they help the reader visualize, right? We use that word a lot when we talk about illustrations in literature. We say, well, this helps the reader visualize the character, the mood, whatever. Well, it does the same thing, right? In an informational text, a visual representation helps us visualize the topic that we're talking about. So think for a second, why do authors include images? Just to make it pretty, make it interesting. And why are images especially important in a text like this one? So when I think about an image that's presented in a text, it's always nice to have an image, right? Even as we grow older, when we're reading longer, bigger, thicker texts, we're still going, oh, look, an image, or oh, a picture. And we're like, this is cool, even in an informational text. So why do authors include images? Why are they so important, especially in a text like this one? Well, authors include images that support their main idea. They include images to help the reader understand something. And in a text like this, authors include images in order to get their point across, right? That most important point that the author's trying to make, well, the author's going to include an image to help you understand that point. And in this book, Rena has a very clear point. She wants us to understand that we can help to change the world, right? And so she's going to include some images at the end of this text that are going to be really important because it's going to help us understand her purpose and why she wrote this book. And it's going to help us gain a better understanding because we weren't alive during this. We didn't experience this. And it's a topic that a lot of us don't have any experience with. It happened in Europe. It happened in a religion that we might not be familiar with. She was a young girl who went through a very traumatic experience, and that's something that we don't have experience with. So her providing pictures to us is going to really help us better understand the topic that she's talking about. All right, chapter 14 and what I call chapter 15, which is really called the acknowledgments. So how do the visuals provided at the end of this text help increase your understanding of topics and events? What do they help you visualize? How do they help you better understand Rena's purpose as an author and her point of view as an author and her main idea? How might a movie about this topic be helpful to achieve the author's purpose? So in the past chapter, we talked about, or Rena told us that Schindler's List was a movie that was made, right? It's not a movie that you guys should really be watching yet. So I'm not going to recommend that you watch it. However, we can still think about how a movie might help achieve the author's purpose, right? And then our quote that we're going to think about today is be an upstander, not a bystander, which is very important. And we'll see what that means. All right, chapter 14, closing thoughts. During those terrible years when millions of Jews and others suffered and died under Nazi rule, many government leaders around the world knew what was happening. People who had escaped from concentration camps brought evidence of the atrocities, first-hand reports, sometimes even photographs. But government leaders chose to do nothing. There's nothing we can do for the Jews, they said. We have to concentrate on winning the war. With all due respect to these leaders, could there have been some anti-Semitism on their part? Such prejudice against others because of religion, race, or skin color must stop. The late President John F. Kennedy once said, "If we cannot end now our differences, at least we can help make the world safe for diversity. For in the final analysis, our most basic common link is that we all inhabit this small planet. We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future, and we are all mortal." Over the many years I've been speaking in public, mainly to students, my message is always the same. You don't have to love everyone, but everyone deserves to be treated fairly. Genocide starts when some people think they are better than others. It is those others, they say, who are the cause of all bad things happening in the world. They don't deserve fair treatment. They deserve to die. That was Hitler's message. He may be gone, but that terrible belief lives on wherever people are oppressed. So when you see a bully, do something. Go get help. 3 kids willing to stand up to one bully. can stop the bully cold. You can make a difference, not just in school, but in the entire nation. In just a few years, I tell young people, you will be old enough to vote. That will give you the power to make a big difference in society. As the years go by, I've shared that message in classes where the teachers themselves were once students I had spoken to. Now those teachers are passing the message along to their students. Perhaps one day their students will become teachers and pass the message along to yet another generation. And perhaps you too, dear reader, will be one of those with the courage to stand up for the innocent. Be an upstander, not a bystander. All right, let's talk about those words really quick. Bystander is a pretty common word that's used. It's used for someone who maybe witnesses something. They see something happen, but they're not involved in it, right? They're standing by whatever happens and watching it happen. An upstander is not a real word, but Rena uses it as saying, well, don't just stand by and watch what's happening. Stand up for what is happening, right? And that's a very powerful quote. All right, we're going to read through the acknowledgments really quick. When you acknowledge something, you state how it helps you or how it helped you. So Rena's going to acknowledge and thank a couple of people along the way who helped her write this book and achieve her goal. And then we're going to see some of those images that we were talking about, which will be very interesting for us. So I want to thank Joshua M. Green for taking on this project with such patience and care. Thanks also to my dear friend Judy Bone, who provided important help and recommendations. Professor Lawrence Langer, one of the world's leading scholars of Holocaust witness testimony, generously gave suggestions for expanding the range of topics discussed here. My editor, Roy Wandelmeyer, has given this book much personal attention, and I'm grateful to him. Finally, I extend my appreciation to Steven Spielberg. Once his movie Schindler's List was seen around the world, the wall of silence came down, and we survivors, along with the liberation soldiers who saved us from the camps and were also witness to the horror, were finally able to share our stories. In 1945, after the end of World War II, where my mother and father and I returned to Krakow, Poland, where I was born, we went to the ghetto, the crowded section of the city where German soldiers had forced Jews to relocate in 1941, and entered the apartment where my grandparents once lived. The door to their apartment was wide open. We didn't expect to find anything of value. All the furniture, linens, and silver had been stolen long ago. But in the attic, I found pictures of my family scattered about. Someone had taken my grandparents' lovely leather-bound albums and tossed away the images. Many of the following photos were among those I was able to salvage from the attic floor. Rena was born in Krakow, Poland in 1929. Here's a photo of her at age 5. Young Rena standing on the right on a summer vacation before the war with her mother, Rosa standing behind her, her father Moses, and her father's sister Sila sitting. In this photograph from 1939, Jewish people in Krakow, Poland are being forced to build the walls of what would become the Krakow ghetto, where the Jewish community would be forced to live. The train tracks leading to Auschwitz, which I had this picture of earlier. Oskar Schindler, pictured here after the war. Schindler's List. Note the names of Rena and her mother, Rena and Rosa Ferber. So this is a picture of the actual list that Oskar Schindler made to gather the Jews that he wanted to work in his factory. Rena, at 17 years old, when she was living in Bindermichael, displaced persons camp after the war. Rena with her husband, Mark Finder, on their wedding day. In 1997, Rena and Mark visited Oskar Schindler's grave in Jerusalem with their grandchildren, Jason and Amy. Rena is dedicated to sharing her experiences during the Holocaust and about the need to always speak out against injustice. So there she was, probably around when she wrote this book. So those images are really important to our understanding and to wrap up Rena's story and her purpose for writing this book, right? And as you guys will have noticed, up till this week, I included pictures in our slides because they're helpful, especially for kids who don't have a good experience of this, right? You guys haven't even learned about this in social studies yet. So I wanted to make sure that I included visuals that would help you be engaged and grasp a better understanding of the topics that Rena talked about here. Okay? All right, tomorrow, I know you guys don't like to write, but I really, really encourage you to watch this writing assignment and to do it because I promise it will help. And I really think that you'll enjoy it. Okay. Love you, miss you, and mean it.